Hello, Alan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Phoebe. How are you?
Good. It's a pleasure to have you in our podcast today, and we're honored and eager to hear the great experience you're going to share today. Viewers, welcome to the Talk to Phoebe podcast, where we explore leadership, entrepreneurship, innovation, and personal transformation through conversation with today's most accomplished business leaders and experts. I'm your host, Phoebe. Today, I'm excited to welcome Alan Melton, founder of Small Business Coach Associate, one of the world-leading small business coaching organization. Alan's entrepreneurial journey spanned more than 4 decades. He founded 12 companies, acquired 6 more, built an Inc. 1200 company, received the U.S. Small Business Person of the Year award, and earned the Florida Governor Sterling Award for organizational excellence. Most importantly, he has coached more than 1,100 business owners using his proven 7-stage business freedom framework, helping entrepreneurs build companies that create profit, freedom, and lasting legacy. Alan, you're welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be with you today. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes. So today, let me tell you how the podcast is going to go before we dive in. We're going to see is structured in 3 parts. It's a conversation. Everything is based on the work you practice and what you've done. Nothing, no surprises. It's going to showcase your challenges, your wins, and what you're doubling down on next. So we're going to start with your background and the industry trend you're seeing. We discuss your current challenges and the future you want for your company in the next 1 year. And we'll explore if there's any unnecessary step that is important. And of course, let me say it again, it's a conversation, a relaxed conversation. So we're here to learn from your experience. And of course, we can start right away.
Very good.
Yeah. Alan, today people see success stories. But before all that, you dealt with crushing debt, employee challenges, cash flow problems, and burnout. What happened during these early years?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you asking that question. And I would say that we'd have to probably go a little bit further back to having some childhood challenges
Yeah.
that I overcame, and that lost my mother when I was very young and at the hands of my father. And my life was actually threatened as well shortly thereafter. And in the nighttime, when my father was drinking, it was not a very pleasant place to live for my mother and for us as children. But in the daytime, there was very little structure, so I could go out and have all the adventures I wanted to. And so daytimes were fun, but without structure, and nighttimes were chaos. And that really informed me as I moved into the adult years. I was fortunate as a teenager to have a couple of families from church who invited me in to live with them in the last couple of years of my childhood. And I learned, one, family structure, and secondly, Christian values, and how maybe a more normal family situation could help. And the second family that I lived with, they were into personal development, and they introduced me to 2 books. One was called The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, and the second book was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And those 2 books really laid the foundation. Soon I was working for a lumber company in a manager trainee position, and I continued that process of personal development and was able to rapidly be promoted, the largest store in the South. And then that really laid the foundation for me, because it was very long hours and kind of a military, highly structured setting. And that laid my foundation for my first business, which we started when I was 26 years of age. And we started with 2 employees, grew it to 130 over 17 years, and 8.5 million, sold it to a publicly held company. And we had incredible challenges in that business in just laying the foundation. We soon were able to grow it to about $1 million in sales, but we had all those classic problems that you mentioned, high debt, cash flow problems, employee problems, customer problems, you name it. We had it, working too many hours and not making enough money. But I made the good decision of hiring a business coach. And within just a few months, we were able to go from, working 70, 80 hours a week to more like 40, and then doubling my income. And so that personal development of hiring that coach made a big impact on my life. And that's why when we sold our business later to a publicly held company, I wanted to do what he had done for me, kind of pay it forward, as they say. And so we started Small Business Coach Associates in 2000.
Yeah, awesome. Your intro is like summarizing all my questions. Everything you said in your intro is going to come up in a question. So that's good. So what
Good.
was the lowest point in your entrepreneurial journey?
Probably the lowest point would be a couple of personal health crises that I had in that company I just talked about. One was I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was about 33 years old. And, at that point, all I knew was just work hard, be on the hamster wheel and, pay the price and, do whatever it took to be successful. But then I reached that limit of my, bodily capacity to work all those hours and do all those things. And that coincided about the time that we hired the coach, and he taught us how to, do things more effectively. And so therefore, back down, I was able to work less. And that's happened with some of our clients where we'll coach them to work less. And then suddenly that health problem that had been looming, hit them, but they had that chance to really kind of refocus, get some rest, begin to open up their mind to what possibilities can be in your business instead of just running all the time.
I think you've already answered the next question, but let me go ahead and do it. You said a business coach changed your life. What did that coach help you see that you couldn't see yourself?
Yeah, a great question. He helped us see so many things that we couldn't see. One was the power of planning, which, when we first started the business, we wrote a plan, that's part of anything that you do. And it's to get a bank loan. But we've kind of forgot about that, I'll say, over the next 7, 8 years until we hired him. And he really helped us to, one, see the power of the planning process, and then two, to engage our employees in the planning process when we had some major changes to make. And then three, the time management piece, which, back in that time, kind of getting life in balance and spending more time with family and getting recharged and do the things that you enjoy doing.
That's awesome. So how did that experience inspire you to eventually create Small Business Coach Associates?
Yeah, great question. I'd say that because of the dramatic change that went on, that was about the time that we began to have children, and I was able to spend time with my family, with my children as they grew up. And I just realized that the benefits were so great for me. I just had a burning desire to share that with other people. And we actually did that within our company, where we had employees, 130 employees. And I wanted them to see that, hey, look where I came from, the other side of the railroad tracks, right? And if you can just do these things, if you begin to improve yourself personally, that everybody with our company can do exactly the same thing through personal development. And so during the last 2 years after we sold the business, we had a 2-part payout. And the second part allowed me to invite them to join us in a $1 million payout to our employees.
Awesome.
But they had to qualify, they had to get personal development. And
Awesome.
so that we had them, listening to tapes when they were driving down the road. to watch videos, to read books, and they had to have a certain amount of hours of personal development to qualify for their share of the bonus.
That's great. So next question, you've built your coaching practice around helping entrepreneurs escape what you called owner's trap. What exactly is owner's trap?
Yeah, great question. The owner's trap is really where I was when we hired that coach. Basically, where you're just on the hamster wheel, just running so much that you really don't have time to think about where you want your company to go and the difference that you want to make in your community and with your employees. And we see it happen really in three different places. One is for that person that's really good in sales and marketing to the point that they onboard a lot of clients, right? And then pretty soon they are just underwater and they're in a state of chaos because they just started a new company. They're working too many hours. They got billing problems and cash flow problems, and they're wearing all these hats in the company. And so their ability to generate sales and income pushes them into chaos. So that's the first place. The second place is where the business owner has a hard time generating revenues and sales.
So why do so many business owners unintentionally become bottleneck in their own company?
Okay, bottleneck. Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think it's that one being on the hamster wheel, right? Because you don't really have time to think about, delegating or think about, hiring somebody or bringing on a partner, those things that are important for the business to run. But probably more commonly would be when a business owner will not delegate and they won't delegate because, nobody can do it better than me.
Yeah.
And that's the furthest thing from the truth. And that's one of the reasons why we really focus in on determining that zone of genius with the business owner. What are they really good at doing? And therefore, what are they really not good at doing?
Yes.
And helping them to delegate those things that they don't like to do and they're not good at doing.
Yeah, awesome. That's my next question. So what are the warning signs that a business is too dependent on its owner?
Well, certainly a lack of growth, right? Or a state of chaos. And then the third symptom for a different set of owners is a poor culture, a poor culture they're operating in.
Yeah, okay. So how does the owner's trap affect profitability, growth, and quality of life?
Great question. Yeah, so in several ways, one for that business owner that is really good at bringing in sales, but they're poor at processes.
Yeah.
And so they're in a state of chaos that prevents the company from growing. That's the bottleneck that prevents the company from growing. There's disasters, customer failure, so on and so forth. That's one of the three.
Okay, so let's go to the next question that you are about to answer. You developed the 7-stage business freedom. What inspired you to create this framework?
Yeah, great question. Well, I have worked with, being that first coach was only the first of many coaches that I've worked with. And I've worked with others who had kind of several stages to a certain point. And I've seen it from online and seen it from, people who are successful. And as I began to look at that, it seemed very logical to me. The 7 steps really were around our experience and basically what happened to me. Some business owners might make it there in 3 stages, but we see that little bit longer place where, they're seeing the growth and then they drop down, they go up to break even, they drop down to the burnout stage. And then from there, if they can delegate, then they start to skyrocket toward freedom.
Awesome. So can you walk us through the 7 stages in a high level?
Yes, be glad to. Yeah, stage 1 is the startup stage, and that's where you're doing a lot of marketing and you have a business plan. And if you're successful in that stage, you'll fall down into what we call the chaos stage. And that's because you've done a great job. Now you got all these clients. How are you going to serve them? In that stage, the key is to begin to develop some rudimentary processes that can create stability. Stage 3 is what we call the break-even stage, and that's where now you're no longer having to pay the business, and you're looking to get your pricing set, and you're beginning to really get a sense of stability to you. Okay. Next stage is stage 4, burnout, and that's where in those lower stages, people typically bring us on. Those are the most common stages that people will bring us on. And that's where you're just working way too many hours, like I was in my story. You're not making near enough money, and something's got to change. Yeah. Now you're ready to learn. And that's when a lot of people will seek help and get a coach, and then to begin to delegate, and not just delegate to just anybody, but to the right person to take that task, and not somebody that's really expensive either. We help people to identify low-cost ways to delegate those things.
Okay, awesome. That's very good. So, what stage do most entrepreneurs find themselves stop?
Yeah, we've engaged people at all the stages, brand new startups. I'll say that most of the people that we onboard are either in 2, 3, 4, or 5. We do have a few that will engage us in 6, and even some in 7. And it's possible, by the way, to return back to an earlier stage. Yeah. You make one change in your business, and suddenly now you're back in stage 2. You're back in chaos.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, what mistake do owners make when trying to jumpstart ahead before they are ready?
Okay. Maybe bite off more than they can chew? Is that kind of the same point? Yeah, great question. I'd say that, for those business owners that are hard charging business owners, we call them the high D type, doers, drivers, decisive, dominant, that they're the kind of the fire, ready, aim type business owners. And sometimes they will do that. And, we certainly were at a place where, we took on, $1 million accounts, $2 million accounts, just on the faith that we could somehow figure it out. Yeah. And fortunately, we did. We didn't have any major disasters, but there are lots of stories where a client just, jumped in water too deep.
Awesome. Okay. So how can business owner identify which stage they are currently operating in?
Okay, great question. So what we do is we have a 36-point scorecard that we take them through, and there's a scoring for each of the points on the scorecard. And once that scorecard is filled out, then it tells us what stage they're in. However, once I describe it to them, many business owners can say, you know what, I'm either in 2 or 4, just based on what you said. By the way, I did not describe the final 3 stages. Stage 5 is profitability, and that's where you have started to delegate some things. You're starting to see some profits, and you really want to lean down where you're going. Stage 6 is success, and that's where you're starting to make an impact on your community. Maybe you're getting some articles written about you, or you're winning some awards. And at that stage, you're looking to complete your infrastructure and have a leadership team that can take you to stage 7, to freedom. When you're in freedom, you could leave your business for 6 months, and when you come back, it would be doing better than it was when you left it. And you've got options you can do. You can do all kinds of things. Start a business, start a ministry, sell the business at the maximum terms. You got lots of options.
Awesome. That's very great. So let me go to the next question. Many businesses generate revenue but still struggle financially. Why does that happen?
Why does that happen?
Yes.
Usually, sometimes it can be due to lack of a budget. Sometimes, for those of us who are that high D type, we'll chase the next shiny marketing thing, and, we'll take I was working with one of my present clients where they were about to spend $4,000 a month on a digital marketing company, And it was a speaker at their conference who told them that they were, they had a really good deal. They could help them grow their traffic and so forth. I
Yeah.
said, let me take a look at them. And so I took a look at their domain authority, their domain score, and the amount of traffic that they were getting to this company that was pitching them. And they were doing worse than my clients.
Okay.
And then I looked at their clients, the people who had given them revenues, and none of their clients were doing as well as mine. And so I said, don't you know, don't buy that package. So I guess a lot of times when we're high D's, we tend to just jump out, take a risk, and sometimes we'll get bit when we take that bad risk.
Awesome. So, what biggest cash flow mistake business owners make?
Yeah, biggest cash flow mistake.
Yeah.
I would say not being if you have a business where you have receivables, you have clients that owe you money, not getting large enough deposits in advance would be one case. Not collecting in the right stage, if you say you're a construction company, and getting behind when people owe you money and then finding out only later that you're not going to get paid. That's one of the biggest ones.
Okay. Okay. So, what financial metrics should every entrepreneur monitor weekly?
Yeah, excellent question. So the top probably would be leads. That is the number of prospects that you're getting in every week that are coming into your business. After that would be conversions. How many of those leads are you converting into clients? Certainly, you always want to look at your financial indicators, like, what's your goal? What's your performance against your goal month to date? These are things we look at every week. What's your net profit goal and percentage? What's your actual profit? And so basically, these are things that kind of keep your hand on the pulse. These are what we call lead indicators,
Yeah.
where a lag indicator is when you're looking at your past, say you're looking at your P&L or your balance sheet, which do inform you, but it's better to know what's happening today.
All right. That's great. So, what's the difference between a business that is busy and a business that is profitable?
Awesome question. And that's, kind of we're back to the owner's trap now, that where business owners are so busy that they don't even look at their financials. They don't take the time to see what's in their bank account. So the businesses that are profitable, one thing that businesses that grow their profits, I've got a mining safety consultant that does this now, is they have transitioned from doing a lot of project based to going to a recurring revenue base, where they have clients who come for their online training instead of a big project that they do, and then now next month they don't have any sales. So many businesses have moved to SaaS, subscription as a service, which helps to stabilize their sales and makes your sales more predictable.
That's very great. So, let's go to the next question. You grow one company to 130 employees. What leadership lesson become essential as the organization expanded?
Yeah, great question. I would say building a great culture that is, helping your employees know that you really care about them, and, having a vision. There's a proverb that says that for there is no vision, the people perish. Well, the opposite is true, that where there is a vision, the people thrive.
Yeah.
And we believe that it's really important to keep that vision in front of your employees, because in the day to day, you have problems, you have all kinds of things, as they say, toil by the sweat of the brow and thorns and thistles, right? And so we experience that every day. And if you forget the vision yourself, then you're done as a business owner. And if you forget to share that vision with your people and keep that in front of them, they're done and they're going to be leaving. And so if you can keep that in front of them, let them know that you care about them, get engagement, get their ideas into your business, help them understand your business, help them help you make decisions, then they're going to love being there because you care about their brains more than you do just their body. And so getting their input, making them feel part of something bigger is a key to keeping your employees and long-term success.
Awesome. So, how do entrepreneurs build leadership team they can trust?
Yeah, great question. There's another proverb that I would say is those that are faithful will be given more.
Mm.
And so you really, as you onboard people, first of all, it is important that you understand the right personality style for the job that you're going to give them. If you do that, they have a greater chance of being more successful because they're fit in the way that they were made by our creator. And so that's the first step, is to get them in the right job and then watch them, coach them. You can take them through the 4 stages of apprenticeship so that they understand completely the job, what your expectations are. And then when you do that, and if you give them credit for their ideas, then they're going to get more excited. And if you catch them doing things right, they'll get even more excited because they'll want to hear that from the boss again. Hey, great idea, great job, so on and so forth. And so as you do that, people will get engaged and excited, and then the cream of the crop will float to the top.
Yeah. Awesome. That's very great. So what's the secret to building a company that can operate without the owner being involved in every decision?
Well, again, that would be empowerment. And one of the greatest things that the Ritz-Carlton taught me, they were our largest account, about a $2 million account for us, but they taught me that every employee can make decisions, and the one that's closest to the customer should be the one making the decision. The worst thing that you can do is have a customer problem, and then they'll say, oh, okay, well, I'll tell my manager, I'll tell my boss, and then to not solve that problem immediately. And so what the Ritz would tell their employees is, look, you are in essence, the way we used to say it is, you are the CEO of this problem.
Yeah.
And you can do these things. In our case, you could do a free trip to the airport. You could do a free limousine ride for a night. You could do a free dinner at a 5-star restaurant. And actually, we had one more that we never had to give away, even free service for life, for the right customer, the right problem. If you really care about your customers, then you will make sure that they are happy and that your employees are empowered to make them happy.
Wow. So let's go to the next question. With the AI being the in thing now, AI is transforming how business operates. What opportunities do you see for small business owners?
Yeah, great question. Certainly, I have some AI buddies, and several of them actually. And so the LLMs, positioning your company for LLMs is a little bit different than doing SEO.
Yes.
And I realize that many small business owners really don't understand SEO either. And those are things that we do teach. But basically, SEO, to give you an illustration, maybe 10 years ago, you could have put on a page 100 times, lumber business, say you're a lumber company.
Yeah.
You put lumber business, 100 times on a page, and you'd have people that would arrive at your page just because you did that. And that's called keyword stuffing. Well, what's happened over the years is Google has gotten better and better at understanding what a real web page should look like. And now they've changed their algorithms over time and made it harder and harder to cheat.
Yeah.
And the LLMs are really just that next iteration of that improvement. And so, but I would say practical advice for business owners would be to have your clients review you on Reddit, which is one of the better platforms. Also some of the platforms like LinkedIn and Medium, and third-party references that are coming into your site. And so winning awards can certainly do that. We encourage our clients to win awards. Actually, this year, we've had 4 of our clients that have qualified for the Inc. 5000, and then one client who was named South Carolina a businesswoman of the year. And so we have them apply for awards, and that way you're getting that third party references that are coming to your business. And so it's more of the same, but it's changed and really in a better way.
Yeah, that's very great. So what are the entrepreneurs getting wrong about AI today?
Being afraid and sticking your head in the sand. There's a lot of fear around AI, and it's not really founded. There's a lot of people that are saying that, AI is going to take over the world and be doing all of our jobs and all that. But AI is really creating a massive amount of jobs. And, we started talking about personal development, and I would encourage every business owner to just, get out there, check out your favorite, whether it's Copilot or Claude or ChatGPT or Grok or Perplexity, you decide which one that you like, try them all out. I didn't mention Gemini. I like you too. In any case, you want to just begin to learn how to use it.
Yeah.
And it can change your world in a very positive way.
Yeah, that's very great. So how can AI help business owner escape ownership trap?
Yeah, good question. I would say that, beginning to ask questions, beginning to allow, Claude's my favorite. And I would say that these people not only are friendly, they're not people, these machines not only are friendly and they can get to know you, but they can give you good advice on how to positively, change your life and change your business. And so they are great tools to use. I'd say lean in, for those of you that are not the early adopters, if you tend to kind of wait see how things flesh out, don't wait, go ahead and get involved, begin to learn it, and you'll be better for doing it.
Awesome.
Great personal development tool.
That's very great. So let me get back to your business now. So what is working well for you right now and what has been frustrating?
Okay. I'll say what is working well is that we did learn about 10 years ago. I had so many negative experiences with people selling me, overpromising and under-delivering in terms of helping us get more traffic. And I decided just to learn it myself. And so we learned, SEO, and we were able to grow our traffic dramatically by doing that. And when we saw this, kind of the shift to AI, we wanted to position our site and our company in such a way that would, we continue to grow and continue to scale using that technology. And however, that I made a big mistake in that the site that we have is about 15 years old, and we had gone through the HTTP to HTTPS transition during that time. And so we had a lot of redirects on our site. That's a long way of saying that we had grown our domain authority. We have a high domain authority and high domain score, DR, as well. And as a result, we have a lot of people who guest post. They write articles on our site, and we we're named one of the top small business blogs on the planet as a result of that. But the downside was, with all this huge site, with all these redirects, it was like a technical nightmare. And when we began to use Ahrefs looking for these problems, we would whack. It's kind of like playing whack-a-mole. We'd hit one mole and then they pop up over here, right? And so we ended up hiring a technical SEO expert
Mm.
who was able to come in and kind of undo a lot of the tangles. And as a result, we've been seeing our rank, our keywords and backlinks and all those things, now skyrocket. So that took us a few months to really figure out, because we had done the learning. We learned, make it JSON schema, structured content, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But what we were missing was the old website mess that was under the covers.
Awesome. That's very good. So how do you measure the success of what you've done with this, your website or your company in general?
Well, in several ways. One is, with the struggles that I just described to you,
Yeah.
what we've been thankful for is, other third-party organizations that have, ranked us as a top small business coach.
Okay.
And so that's something that we didn't really expect. And then secondly is our client success, which is probably the most important metric.
Mm-hmm.
We're fortunate that we have clients that have been with us for a long time, one 9 years, one 8 years, one 7, several 5 years, that, they stay with us. And that's provided a stable income for us, through this technical mess that we had. Next would be the guest post income, that comes in that we didn't expect. But probably the biggest thing would be the success of our clients, and, having 4 Inc. 5000 winners so far this year, which is good. And another client that won the business award. Seeing our clients thrive is really what it's all about. And I love serving my clients and love seeing their results.
Yeah. So is there any metrics you're focusing on improving to make sure that your client thrives and win those awards and all that?
Yeah, that certainly would be winning awards. The Inc. 5000 is all about sales growth.
Okay.
And, how sales growth are happening year over year. And with the business of the year, it was probably for her is more about impact. And I went to her a few months back and said, hey, you really ought to apply for this award. And if you'd like me to, I can nominate you for this award, because I've been working with her for 8 years and I've seen the impact that she's made on our community.
Yeah.
So I helped her. I got together with one of my AI buddies, and we, kind of entered in her information, and were able to submit a really strong application for her. Oh. So I'm not sure. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, sure. That's very good. So, okay, where do you want your company to be in the next 1 year?
1 year?
Yeah. 6 months, 1 year?
Yeah. Well, I'll say probably our long-term goal is to serve 10,000 clients. And, we've got a ways to go. We've served about 1,100 so far. And so we're scaling to meet that goal in 5 years. So that's really what we aspire to is making an impact on more people. We do have different kinds of ways that we now serve people. As I mentioned, we have the now clients who guest post, and we have online programs that people use. And so we have several different offerings that are helping us to scale it beyond that. That's 1,100 is for the one-to-one business clients.
Okay, that's very great. Okay, is there any specific KPIs you're tracking to make sure you hit that 10,000 client in 5 years? Is there any specific KPIs you're tracking?
We do. We look at a lot of things. One, certainly is our retention rate, how long clients stay with us. And we also look at every week we look at every day we look at our website speed, which is an important metric, for the LLMs. And then once a week we look at our guest posting, the amount of guest post and link insertions that we've done. We also look at, just what we tell clients to do, leads, conversions, and cash in the bank, revenue goal, and profit goals.
Okay, awesome. So if you have a magic wand to fix just one thing in your business that is holding you back or slowing you down, what will that one thing be?
I think the one thing is what I just described to you, the technical mess that we dealt with. And we are now only about 2 to 3 weeks away, beyond that mess that we think is solved. And we've seen a couple of little glitches since then. And I've gone back to the guy. Right now he's got a sick baby and not getting, I'd like to see faster response, but family first, right?
Yeah.
But I would say that has been the biggest thing that has been a bit of a burden over the past year. And I'm glad to get that behind me. We are still, our team is using a lot of AI to advance our business. We are looking at automating some of the processes that we do.
Okay.
And we're right now using Claude to kind of focus on that next thing. But frankly, I'm glad to have that technical problem behind me, or mostly behind me.
Okay.
And now that we've got that behind us, we're kind of setting our sights on different things that we want to improve. But I'd say one thing would be getting our guest posting and link exchanges and other administrative tasks where they're fully automated.
Yeah.
That just gives our team capacity to think bigger and to reach out bigger.
Yeah. Okay, you talking about automation. So how far are you? What's your plan for the automation? What processes do you want to automate?
Yeah, just what I kind of described would be most of our admin processes. We brought on VAs as a solution to us and have excellent VAs that work for us now. We're going to keep them, and we're just using them to help us with those administrative processes that we have, and things that they do. Social media. We want to be better on engagement. So having an AI agent that could go and do our engagement for us.
Okay.
And maybe even we are using AI to help us do our creatives and even some of our posts. And so more of that, just typically the work that the VAs are doing.
Okay. You mentioned about using all these tools. One thing I always like to drop in is that using an AI tools is good. It gives you efficiency, but it doesn't equate to automating your process. And of course, it doesn't lead to the transformation, which every business owner is looking for. The tool gives you efficient speed, but for you to automate is a different thing altogether. And for you to have that transformation everybody's looking for, it's also, that's where the agentic AI comes in. But anyway, I just always want to drop it because most of the time there's this mistake. I don't want to call it misconception because it's negative. That when you're using the tool, you can use the tool to automate. No, it's a different process. But okay, that's just by the way. All right, let's go to the next question, which we're almost there, and we're really enjoying our time. Talk about business freedom and legacy. You sold your company to a publicly traded organization. What did that experience teach you about building business value?
I think that it taught me everything. And what I would say is that we got involved with the Sterling Award process there in the last few years. It was 99 that we were named the winner. So we got started in about 96 after we were serving the Ritz-Carlton, and they had won the Sterling Award twice. And I said, well, if they can do it, we can do it. And so we, kind of that high D, thinking that I can do anything.
Yeah.
But we did go after it. We applied a couple of years and we got better and better and better. And by that third year, they named us, one of two recipients.
Oh.
And that award is modeled after the Malcolm Baldrige National Award process. And that's really what taught me about processes and, the importance of automation and processes. And so doing that really prepared me for coaching.
Yes.
In my mind, I felt like that we had learned enough where we could help other clients. I read the book, The E-Myth, and I noticed that in the E-Myth that it was a good framework, but it really lacked some meat on the bones, so to speak. It really felt like we, as a coaching company, we could practically take business owners who were going through those problems, since we had lived it and had experienced many of the mistakes, many of the problems, that we could help them. And that's why I founded Small Business Coach Associates.
That's very good. So what does a true business freedom looks like?
A true business
Freedom.
freedom. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, the freedom gives you the choices to make every day. You can decide if you're going to work on the business. And really, at that point, you have elevated yourself so that you're no longer necessary for the day-to-day operations. The business doesn't depend upon you for decisions that are made, kind of that empowerment that we talked about a little earlier. And so you can decide you're going to be with a family, or you're going to take a day at the beach, or you can be off today, or you can, dig in a little bit, call one of your top people in your company, your president or your CFO, and, find out what's going on with them. You can spend your time coaching your team members, helping them to get better and better and better. Again, you can replicate your business in other markets. You can sell your business at the maximum terms and price. Really, you've got a choice to do really whatever you want to do. You've got that freedom from the day-to-day requirements of being in the business.
Awesome. So what role does legacy play in how entrepreneurs should build their companies?
Productivity,
What roles does legacy play in how
legacy.
entrepreneurs should build their businesses?
Yeah, great. Excellent question. Yeah, certainly it is more, life is more than just, making money, and life is more than just getting wealthy. And for the business owner that really wants to live beyond the business, their goals are set on that vision of the future, that future vision that you would have. And what's the impact that you want to make on the planet? What do you want to make on your employees? What do you want to make on your customers, and to improve their lives? And to me, for me, what is it? To me, that's personal development, telling people that no matter where you are, doesn't matter if you're in jail right now, doesn't matter if you're in the ghetto, it doesn't matter what your upbringing was. It doesn't, nothing matters other than your ability to improve yourself and want to make better for yourself and make better for other people. And if you can do both, you can create a legacy where people remember you, they speak highly about you, and they're thankful for the positive impact you've made on their lives.
That's great. So when entrepreneurs reach financial success, what often surprised them most?
Yeah, good question. I think probably, the ones that I remember are the ones who saw not only the positive, when you're in that state of burnout, you're ready to quit. You're ready to go get a job. You're ready to give up. And for those that now see themselves beyond what they could have ever dreamed, and they see their life, how blessed their lives are, and how richly, how a different life is that they never would have imagined when they were a little kid, or never would have imagined when they started coaching, never could have dreamed that it would be that good. That is impact. That is, and we've seen that with many of our clients, some that really are, cemented in my life, the client that went from lady that went from 120 hours to 45 in about three months. Her life was impacted very rapidly.
Yeah.
And it's usually not that quick. Growing a business usually takes some time. Chris, our recent example, went from 3 million to 9 million in 10 months, which
Wow.
is pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's still, even for those rapidly growing businesses,
Yeah.
work is hard. It's thorns and thistles and toil by the sweat on the brow. And so it is hard work,
Yeah.
but it is a delight to see them say, wow, this business is now a machine and I don't have to be there every day to run it.
Great. Alan, after founding multiple companies, building and Inc. 500 businesses, and coaching more than 1,100 entrepreneurs, what separates those who achieve lasting success from those who struggle?
Great question. Yeah, three things. One is that they are action takers, that they find a way to take action between meetings. The second thing is that they are willing to be held accountable. And the third is that they are coachable. They're willing to learn. And, truth be told, a lot of businesses during the early stages, and maybe probably males more often than females, it are pretty hard headed. It takes them a hard time to kind of get to the end of themselves, you might say. But those three aspects, action taker, coachable, and being willing to be held accountable,
That's
are
awesome.
the three.
Yeah. If you could sit down with your 26-year-old self starting the first car rental business, what advice will you give him?
Oh, wow. What a great question. That is awesome. I would say do more personal development. I know I kind of hammered this a lot during our interview today, but I would say for me, it's been, ebbs, mountains and valleys where I've done the personal development. And I would say Jim Rohn said this. He said that work harder on yourself than you do on your business. And so I think that during those early formative years, as even right out of my teens, if I could do it again, and when I was in that car rental business, I would have been a learning machine earlier on.
Yeah, that's very great. So when you look back on your career and all the entrepreneurs you've helped transform their businesses and lives, what do you hope your legacy will be?
Well, just that I made that difference, that I instilled in them the desire to grow personally. And by the way, the most rewarding thing I can do when I'm having a bad day is just open up our client review page.
Okay.
And that's really a delight to me, is to see, what people said in their own words, about the impact that we've made. So I would say, just that we made the world a better place, because what we do is we attract people, typically that are like-minded. They want to grow. They want to be better. They want to help their community. And if we can help them prosper, and then they can give to what they're passionate about, doesn't matter what it is, battered women, orphans, the hungry, the lost, whatever their passion is, they can do more of it and then improve their community. And then they have these employees that they manage. They can improve the lives of their employees, and people can learn and get better and become more valuable to our planet.
That's very good. So getting back to your goal of getting, I think, 10,000 new clients, and you've said something about using SEOA and stuff like that. Do you have any other way you generate your leads for this new? Because the number you're looking at is not just one. It's not what you get with one drop-ins and all that. You need kind of a pipeline that will give you a steady lead, that you need to work on. Do you have anything like that going on?
Yeah, that's always it, and that's really where we were before the website disaster.
Okay.
And now we have grown a little bit through that pain, in that we are now getting leads from several different places instead of just one.
Yeah.
And we have always gotten leads from referrals, which
Yeah.
those are good, but they're not consistent.
Yeah.
And we're seeing, more leads through social media. We're seeing leads through outreach that we do, email outreach, and we've got outbound marketing that we're doing as well. And so it's now becoming, instead of just having that one leg on the stool, now we've got a couple or three.
Yeah. Rapid fire roundup, just like a roundup. One question. No. Biggest mistake small business owners make.
Mistakes that they make?
Yeah.
I'd say, one would be growing too fast without systems.
Okay, that's great. Most important business metrics
would be profits.
Awesome. Best leadership traits.
Engagement.
Awesome. One book every entrepreneur should read.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Great. Biggest growth accelerator.
Local businesses, Google Business Profile.
Okay. Awesome. One word that defines success.
That defines what?
Success.
Success.
Yes.
Persistence.
Okay. One word that defines business freedom.
Delegation and systems.
Yes, great. Alan, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your insight with us today. One of the biggest takeaway from this conversation is that entrepreneurship shouldn't be about creating another job for yourself. It should be about creating a business that generates freedom, opportunity, impact, and long-term value. And the freedom that doesn't happen by accident. It happens through system, leadership, discipline, and intentional growth. So to everyone listening today, thank you for joining us to another episode of Talk to Phoebe. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to our episode and follow and leave us a review. To learn more about Alan Melton, please visit his website at Small Business Coach Associates. And we're going to also leave his information in the description box for everything and even the phone number. Please feel free to contact Alan, and whatever information or question, of course, business, of course, go ahead, because he has proven his track record in what he did, that he's a seasoned person in this field. So until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and keep building the business that creates freedom. I'm Phoebe, and this is Talk to Phoebe podcast. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
All right.
It's a pleasure.